현재 전부 돌던 힘이죠. 오늘만은 전부가 된다. 그러다는 감상도 싫는다. tumba dekje janla gi shom zar tene tsedong zamba sharibin dap nyamdo samde gdik tsulayang vapna shangchib sangwa chimbo ndadag na mardang na ndadag zan karar za nyamu tene latsam bachima me pachagbe tsedong zamba sharibe semgir tukba semgi shine tsedong zamba sharibe landirka jirme so zamba sharibe devjang shabir nabar tarab gyapo gangdak songbo number tarwate tagla ne per kila zang dan jipi jiki chu manin ji zamba shari wa yitzum jig do chigda ngun mamnyong wa kaze zabarin gyuru tene cedang tene di ce lezam bachama me bachaba di inter tawi tangen zanlar nyombar jigde Dendri zamchir lam ngumbar shawa ngumbar ndishi so. Deer tangab shukzu sangi ji xiang dena sangi ji xiang gangga hlongu shikun jibchir tsani ji shimat nin deba na jikten ji kamar pu tamche ji jamchuk ji shawa yote. Shangchib sanhua dedag dang nyanto chenpo dedag tan laf tandu. Dena devjang shakbar pumchuk tsagba ji shawa dartar vjigden tsojang ji so. Jikten ji kam ter shokjin jikten ji kam tamchi ji mo dang la zhi shongwa dewe jiang jikten ji kam te xiang le chi kyabar dang bakbar shong jikten ji kam te na no nyan tu dang rang sang ji ma yang met xiang chib san hua mba ji ge tsog di ba te dag dewer shakbar pum shok tsag ba ti chur tong do jikten ji kam te na kang wa tsag ba tamchi jiang pu le shi ba chag ba dang jed mu tsar dang Zermit kang tamchi kyang pule shiso. Gam shangchib sangwa te daga ze zawe ze de ji jikten ji kam tsat me bar kyabo. Di ze jondan de devjang shag bar pum chok tsagbe shangchib sangwa te daga taak chigda shuruk soru shirda jigde. Dina li ver pup kupa ji shawe tagba chimbo la yang tagbar jigba te daga jondan de shangchib sangwa te daga rimro dang nyamgar jibar zondo. Dene tamchitan tambin korten jikten ji kamdena jondan de dedok shanchib sangwa dedok shulab ko te jigbam tongo dela lutsam bachmami bachbe shanchib sangwa dedok tamchil lan dirkich meso gewe tamba kid namgi nana santi ji jang dena zelen suf chogo dene jagwar ji shinjibla be sayang choa medo Dene lezam bachama me bachakbe jagruk zhonna kirwa lan dirkich meso jagur kyukin kurun danjawa ngo matsagam kyukin kurun danjawa ngo matsagam me ba rikiba devjang shigbe maflab ba la nipr mafsha go jikson ba malaksam Dene lezam bachama me bachakbe lezam bachama me marti langne shangchib sanhua teta qamdan de zhiyu shangchib sanhua li xergi ka tuqta sanda huishib zangbo logbar gyamba jik zhirde gangang korte de tamchi mogmorur por shede kerwa tertawi xigsir nawr kerdo Dene lezam bachama me bachakbe zhiyu shangchib sanhua lan dirkich sor dirkich meso rigjiwe kyodur tangab shogzu songla sanji ji jang gangang shima gangang je Tsavni ji shimat nin debana jikten ji kam pu tamchi ji chumchuk ji shawa yote te na tevjang shakbar pumchuk tsagba ji shawa shuru soru shirdo jigba ter songla tevjang shakbi javlam go shigm saten dirkich yik sordo la zamba chumame bachagba chumdan di ji jab la lanu gyartong dom go shigm sarni chumdan de la noba chongan nyam ngawa nyongan 교파 양암 소화감 스톱당 대화당 카나마토 맘가자 데버 니팔 데버 럭발라 네슴 지 뉴노 소르자 데르키치 초고 좀든 디키 소르비 팜팜바 더글랍 자르 소르 팜팜바 팜파바 데 직텐지 감 맘제트 상지 짐자파 기브른 겨루 Mambala mupa semchin lan dadak gya chimbo tapar giprin gyo Mambala mupa tidong dadak tab giprin Mambala mupa tidong dadak tab giprin Devjang shakbim tsan gyang giprin gyo do ji خصورتك
Well, today we will then resume the class on Vimalakirti Sutra.
在这个
Before the class, I have a few announcements,
说一下吧
one of which is that Vimalakirti Sutra
我最近可能
may have
知道还有不太多
around a dozen of classes left, maybe.
因为现在这一批
After this particular chapter, the next few chapters are rather
这
easy.
些都比较简单
After this, what are we going to learn?
就
As I told you earlier,
跟大家说过可能没有
if there's no other obstacles, then we will begin the class on Suragama Sutra. Is that real claps for celebration or
现在这个
clapping doesn't matter much? What matters is to listen to the classes
原来我
carefully
们在
and
文墨记记
attentively.
和大家
At the beginning of
应该
Vimalakirti
刚开
Sutra,
始听课的人到最
we
后真正
had
听课的
only
是一半
half
都
of
减
the
少
attendees left who started at the beginning.
多少完的话中间就这样
At the
所以刚
beginning,
开始
people
很多
may
人
feel
好
quite
奇心
curious,
但
but
是
not
坚持
many
的人
people
很
could
少
persist
尤其是无意间
and
好多人都
couldn't
会觉
really
得安利
continue
人
to
现在
listen to the
手机
classes.
上也可以
Many
听但
people
是呢
probably went out for
看到很多人都
travel
也缺课
for other
还可以
things,
断
and
了
then they stopped
像
their
这个无意的话那么
classes,
重要的
stopped
谁会看
their
我们
oral
的一些
transmissions.
佛教徒
Is
呢就是
May
现
the
在
1st,
确
the
实有点
Labor Day, really that important?
这样
Is
呢
it really that important to
不像我们刚
go
开始
out
听
for
课一样
travels?
对吧就是我们是一般这种情况是
For
可能
us,
不会
in
出
such
去
a
即使出去的
situation,
话那
we
就
probably
现在
won't
这
go
个时代
out.
一样的话
Even if we go
那
out,
就不
you
会断
can,
传承
even if you go out, you can still listen to the class
仅
on
仅是
cell
我们
phones
这个
still.
无意啊
So it's
失
not
忆
a
啊
big,
就是这个
it's
是
not the
可能
biggest
很多人都是
obstacle.
把这个
People
方法
nowadays
是
would consider
阻
that
碍
classes are
或
not
者
the
是散
most
乱
important.
这种
Rather,
建设
they would
所
consider
以今
that
天我
taking
们在这
vacations
个
are the most
也是一
important.
说能源
When we talk about Suragama Sutra, you may
但
clap
实际上呢
hands,
这个过一
but
段时间真
later
正
on,
信的时候
how many of you are going to
真正坚持的人
persist
就多
on
少
listening to the entire teaching all the way through?
不敢说对吧就是你们自己
I think you can
也
contemplate
刚
on
开始
that
很多人
on your
最后
own,
一堂课也是很多人
whether
就
if
来
you
了
can
就
persist.
是这是一个现在的一
This
个
is how
很多
people
人的类似的
nowadays
状况
are, anyways,
不管怎么
because
样就是
their
没有特殊
mentalities are
情况的
different.
话就有这个
Anyhow, this
想
is
法因为
my
在
plan
汉地也
for
是
now.
经常讲那个
In mainland China, we always say that it is the Lotus Sutra that brings enlightenment. It is a Lotus Sutra that
应该是具有价值
brings Buddhahood, and Suragama Sutra that brings
大
enlightenment.
德们比以前这个
That's
弘扬得
the
非常好的
saying that
这些
that
那
is
么我们也
often
现在有一些传承啊就是这样的话给大家
said, describing both of the sutras, and we've already studied the Lotus Sutra before, so now Suragama Sutra.
不确定的
Many masters from the past also made lots of commentaries and taught on it extensively in the
谁也
past
没
as
办法
well.
确定
But we can never be so sure.
即使不能
I'm not sure if
不能
I'll
成
be
功
able to teach it successfully,
佛法方面
even if I
佛法
can't.
方面或者修行方面的话呢我们对未来还是有一些
I think
计
as a
划
good practitioner, although knowing impermanence, it is important to make plans of studying and practicing
还有
Dharma
呢
for the
那个
future.
我前两天也讲了我们那个下个礼拜四
Next
和下个礼拜
Thursday
五开
and
始的话呢
Friday,
就下个礼拜四开始
every
每个礼拜
week
当中吧
on those 2 days, we will begin our class on Uttara Tantra,
的话呢那么
the Buddha nature class
也确实像我
in
们藏地的话
Tibet, on the
发现了是
Tibetan
不管是
plateau.
这个
let it be Sakyapa, Gelupa, Junampa, Nyingmapa, Gakyupa, any kind of schools. All schools are propagating and teaching this particular sutra, just like the Bodhisattva Charyavatara. Therefore, I really think that people from mainland should also study this, as well as people from every place. And I also want to teach it the same way as how I taught the Bodhisattva Charyavatara. Just as people often talk about how all sentient beings has Buddha nature, but not knowing how. Therefore, it is quite important to study this. On top of that, this particular Shastra, this particular text is a bridge between Sutrayana and Vajrayana. Even if one person listens to my teaching, I will listen. I will continue to teach this, even if it's just one person. When I was mentoring the commentary of when I was mentoring the commentary, the great commentary of a text, I had only one mentee at the beginning and had one mentee at the very end. But after 2 years, that monk got derobed. Whichever way, however it turned out. What I heard is that although he derobed, his actions were still really good. He continues to practice, to recite, and refrain from killing, and so on. So on one hand, it is that he derobed, but on the other, his actions were still very different than the others. What did we learn at that time? At that time, I think we learned the extensive commentary on the basis of don't listen to the class just because I may feel happy that you're here, and therefore I'm attending only for Khenpo's happiness. Well, in that case, I don't think you have to attend this class, because for me, it doesn't really matter whether you listen to it or not. But listening to the Mahayana, in terms of listening to the Mahayana teachings, I think you should realize that we don't really have such great opportunities in listening to the Mahayana texts. I feel my health and my life is at a stage of setting sun, and I don't even know how much opportunity I would have in the future to teach you other texts as well, especially as the Uttara Tantra. This time I'm going to teach this particular text just as how I taught the adornment of Mahayana Sutra. So next week, our new class will start with our Tantra on Thursday and Friday. For those of you who have not received the text, you may have the digital version, or there are places to have the texts. On top of that, there's a Tibetan version of a sutra that is called the Sutra of Parents. It's really short, so after the teaching of Sigalovada Sutra, I want to teach it. It's about filial piety towards parents. It's really short. I really want to share that with you as well. So after Sigalovada Sutra, we'll have one class on that sutra. I won't speak too much on these announcements, but now let's move on to the chapter 10. After the study of chapter 9, which is the chapter on non-duality. After finished listening to all the comments from the 31 or 33 bodhisattvas, including Vimalakirti and Manjushri, all 33 bodhisattvas pointing out instructions or all of their instructions, only that Vimalakirti kept silent. Kept silent. It's sometimes very important, because when we are at a certain level of realization, or when it's not necessary to say things to others, to respond to the others. Just like Mipa Rinpoche, in his text on the speech, he said that sometimes it's important to respond when it's necessary and important to keep silent when it's necessary as well. Other bodhisattvas, although they said something that is non-dual, but Vimalakirti, but Manjushri think that they're still on extremes. Now we are on the chapter 10, the Buddha accumulation of fragrance, or the name of this Buddha is Gandotama-kutta. Accumulation means many or great sum of. As Master Kuei-ji mentioned, it is that it's lots of fragrance, and with the accumulation of or kutta in the name, it means accumulation of merits as well. It is the fragrance and merits of food, the accumulation of such. In mainland, lots of masters, they also say that the fragrance of meal will help the path of enlightenment. Lots of the mainland monasteries, the Chinese monasteries, their kitchen's name is the accumulation of fragrances, and that's how they call their kitchens. So sometimes maybe your centers or the kitchens over there, the restaurants, you can name it as such as the Gandotama-kutta kitchen or Gandotama-kutta restaurant and so on, or accumulation of fragrance. But you have to make sure you do a good job in terms of cooking and it does smells good. Otherwise, people will have a very different idea about the name. This is a very often used name, and maybe it's partially because Vimalakirti Sutra is one of the earliest translated sutra into mainland. Therefore, this name is widely spread and widely used in mainland China. So now we're studying the 10th chapter, the Buddha accumulation of fragrance. In the Tibetan version and in the Sanskrit version, the name of this chapter is a feast brought by emanated incarnation, because this is a chapter where the emanated incarnation went to the Buddha land to bring the feast. But according to the translation of Chinese, it is the Buddha accumulation of fragrance chapter. At this point, Shariputra thought to himself, it is almost noon. Shariputra thought to himself as an arhat, as a Shravaka. He was thinking that it's almost noon. It's noontime, it's meal time, it's lunchtime. And there's so many bodhisattvas. After they've given all the teachings, what will all these bodhisattvas eat? On one hand, as a Shravaka, he has a very regulated schedule during his day because of his Vinaya, because of his precepts. And as a Shravaka, he's not like all the bodhisattvas in terms of his realization. He has, as a Shravaka, he has the need for having meal at a specific time, rather than how bodhisattvas, they don't have that many rules binding them in such a way. So he was probably feeling hungry, and he was thinking that so many bodhisattvas, so many disciples are here, and then how can they have their meal? Because Vimalakirti is in this place that is so empty. So he was just thinking to himself and very distracted by the meal, by the thought of meal. I think sometimes when we're listening to some really good teachings given by Dharma teacher, the Dharma teacher probably feels very passionate and really excited about the teaching, and he just talks on, and then at that time, maybe there are disciples or students listening to them getting really hungry and really wanting to go for lunch. When Pontsuk Rinpoche was giving teaching, sometimes he would continue teaching for a long period of time, but at that time the class starts at 2 p.m. But because it takes a long time, some people would go out halfway and listen to some mentoring class. Sometimes the class lasts very long, all the way till the sunset. He talks about his experience during the 60s and 80s, his stories of his during his studies, and all of us would sit around Pontsuk Rinpoche and listen to him. Around 6 p.m., the circle gets smaller and smaller, only at the end a few left. At that time, there's no lights. We don't have any street lights. We have no lights at all. We only had lights around 1991. And I came here around 1985. Around 1987, when we were studying the Buddhist logics, that class was still starting around 2 p.m. Because at that time I always would think to myself, if it was my turn to give oral exams, what do I do? That was my mentality at that time around the afternoon. After we went to India and came back from India, we built the large shrine hall over there, and then the class of Pontsuk Rinpoche moved earlier to 10 a.m. Sometimes Pontsuk Rinpoche would continue to talk till around noontime, sometimes 12, sometimes 1. And when it gets to noontime, especially when he started talking about Atisha's story, Juntunpa's story, and Pama Sambhava's story, and whenever he talks about those kind of stories, he just gets more excited and talks more and more. So at that time, we would get hungry, and then we would close our Tibetan text together and hold it in our arms and waiting for the class to be over. We're so ready to go, but the class just doesn't end. So at that time, on one hand, sometimes when I think about it, around that time, the shrine hall was still hollow on the top of it, so it would snow at that time, and then it's really cold on the surface of the cement. We would just sit over there on top of this cold cement without any of the cushions. Unlike nowadays, how people would go to a class on the first day and the second day they wouldn't go to a class anymore. That's how we listened to the Dharma classes at that time. But when we compare our experiences to Ponsok Rinpoche's time, it was still much, much better than his materials providings at that time. Sometimes I feel that when even the Dharma teaching is excellent, if time is too long, we were not able to be attentive. In the biography of Ashvaghosha, it talks about a story of Ashvaghosha at a kingdom where the king at that time wanted to test Ashvaghosha's realization. So he purposely took 7 horses and starved them for 6 days, and then took those horses in front of Ashvaghosha and requested Ashvaghosha to teach Dharma to everyone as well as the horses, and try to embarrass him by hoping that the horses would make a big scene over there. But the horses at that time not only were very focused and attentive listening to the Dharma teaching by Ashvaghosha, some of them they teared up and they cried, and some of them they made longing cries. So they all listened to his teaching. There are many stories about how Ashvaghosha and how his teachings are excellent. Even the animals are listening to the Dharma teachings attentively. Come on. Ooh. Wow, that's amazing. After we talked about listening to the Dharma teachings and the experiences of listening to the Dharma teachers, sometimes we would encounter the hunger, thirst, cold, and sometimes not focused. This is rather normal for mundane people. But for us who are attaching great importance to listening to the Dharma teachings, we should not abandon the opportunity of listening to the Dharma because of some chores, because of meal, and so on. This is extremely important. This is really important. When you're listening to class, you probably know that people in the past, they listened to the Dharma in scorching cold, in thirst, in hunger, in many difficult obstacles. But we should not focus on those, but rather we should focus on listening to the Dharma. Wherever you are, whatever environment you are in, during listening to the Dharma teachings, whatever things occur during such ongoing Dharma classes, do not stop the Dharma class. Do not interrupt the oral transmissions. Let's look at all the previous masters, the Dharma practitioners. They had to persevere through many obstacles. Compared to them, we are in a much better situation. We have lots of convenience of listening to the Dharma. If we're not using those convenient methods and listening to the Dharma, then how very pitiful that is. Sometimes it is because of the external environment, then people would lose their opportunity of listening to the Dharma, and sometimes it's because of their actions or obstacles brought by their mentality and emotions. Those are not good. Just because of those, you stop the Dharma classes. Those are the things that we should avoid. Do not walk around during the Dharma class, because I understand that listening to the Dharma is not easy, but if you walk away in such a big stride, this is not good either. There's a sutra. It is called the Sutra of Repaying the Buddha's Benevolence with Great Skillful Means. And inside it says that for the sake of Buddha Dharma, bodhisattvas do not fear king's punishment, nor hunger, thirst, the freezing cold and scorching heat, bandits, tigers, wolves, and all beasts of prey, and so on. Before they listen to the Dharma, they will properly adjust their sense faculties and set the mind in a pure state, free from all afflictions. When they listen, they will listen attentively with 4 kinds of attitude. One is genuine sincerity, that the mind is very focused. The second one is undivided attention, that is devoid of doubts. So you have to cut off doubts. The third one is wholeheartedness, one-pointedly listening to the Dharma. Other kinds of thoughts should be put down at that moment. And the last one is kind-heartedness. Faith, respect, joy, pure mind. With such kind of mind, you should then receive the Dharma. This is how you should listen to the Dharma classes. During the course of Dharma class, you should observe your own mind and see if your mind is like your mind has this 4 four qualities that is stated above. Don't listen to the Dharma class or appear of staying here listening to the class, but your mind is flew somewhere else. For beginners,
可能有些事情呢，就是也要这个考虑，就是不一定就是所有的。
You may not be able to have all these four kinds of attitude. At the beginning, your mind may be like a wild monkey. It is so distracted, so wild. But at that time, don't be so fearful. Because slowly, tame your mind slowly. It will be tamed. That's how your mind is. If you see your mind is a little distracted and then right away you feel so defeated, and that's not good. Some of our management team, you should protect the mind of the beginners. This is really important. At the beginning, people may feel really weak and not having steadfast faith at the beginning. When they feel that they're not smart enough, when they are not diligent enough, they may feel rather have a sense of self-doubt and feel that they're not up to par to the Dharma classes anymore. In this way, they may very easily to retrogress from the path. Therefore, it is quite important to protect their mind, protect their hearts, so that to build their confidence in themselves. Do not disturb their mind at the beginning. Especially the management team over here. Sometimes they are too strict on the beginners, but I understand their intention. Although I am no Vimalakirti, I don't have the numinous power of reading your mind, but at least I have my own observation from understanding your intention and your actions as well. I know that some of you probably put me in the blacklist of not following your order too. Some of the leaders, at the beginning, they don't have skillful means and they ask all the beginners to behave. And some of them, they feel that they should use the position of authority to keep others under control. But I would advise you that status and fame are all fake. They're not real. Do not have attachment to them. I really hope that all of those who are in management status in the management team do not treat the beginners so harshly. Some of the beginners, maybe they are repetitively making mistakes. Yes, then you could punish them. You could use the regulations to punish them. But some of them, they're not like that at all. They just made a mistake by chance. And in such a case, I don't think you should punish them. And nowadays, another situation is if the leader or the management team says so and so, then whomsoever work for them would also agree with them. Therefore, I really hope those of you who are working for the management team, and in fact everyone, you should have discriminating wisdom and to discriminate whether if this is true or not. You should have a mind for your own rather than listen to your leaders blindly. At the beginning, whomsoever is expelled from Larangar, I had to know who it is and what the situation is, and I had to agree to it. And later on, what I found out is that there are people who are expelled from this university is expelled without my knowing. What is the result? A king in the past sentenced a person in the prison for 6 days, but later he forgot about this person, and the person who were imprisoned for a much longer period than 6 days and starved to death in the prison. What's the karmic result of that then? At the beginning, in fact, as a beginner, he could receive lots of influence from the management team. Some of them may have such a precious opportunity of listening to the Dharma, but because of the mistake or even emotional treatment from the management team, they lost such precious opportunity forever, as the blind turtle then will drown in the ocean, will get back into the ocean rather than having the opportunity of being liberated. This is quite important to be a good management, to have a good management. Some places they have their very good management. They would share their resources to other people and protect others as parents would protect their children. Some of our Dharma teachers, they really love their students over here. Even some of their students are of bad character, of bad tempers. They still love their students the same. So I really hope the team leaders, management team, on one hand, it's wonderful to be on the status of management, especially for those of you who never really had the opportunity to be on a management team. You are a king of a small group. How wonderful is that? At the beginning of my time over here, I felt I was tutoring 5 or 6 lamas grammar of Tibetan language, and at that time I was feeling really proud of myself. That great, I am a small king of this group. So I really hope that all the Dharma teachers as well as the group leaders would use love and compassion towards your students and the people whomsoever is in your group. There are requirements for being a Dharma teacher, there are requirements for managing a team. As a listener, they have the prerequisites, or they have the kind of attitude of listening. And for a Dharma teacher, they also should have the kind of characteristic of having love and compassion towards them. When I was serving Ponsog Rinpoche, sometimes I mentor the group. I wanted to scold them from time to time, but I was worried that if they can't accept it. Of course, I cannot. In fact, I cannot micromanage your own class or micromanage your own classes, but I could if I had to. Now I'm really busy. I was giving a teaching to 4 different groups for over 4 hours the other day.
提了一些建议，就是后来我打听了一下，我也了解一下我的话起不起到作用，就是当然起不到作用呢。
I then later on did a survey and see if my words made any difference.
起到作用的话呢，我这样的人也是所以。
Sometimes I would feel that great, a person like me also listen. Also, people listen to my words, and my words made a difference.
这个以后再说。那下面我们开始讲那个
Now let's continue with the
继续讲
class.
是吧？就当时舍利子舍利弗啊，就是说这个怎么就是还不吃饭呢？
Shariputra asked, "How come it's not lunchtime yet? How can we have
到了
lunch?"
中午的时候怎么吃饭呢？就这样想的。那个时候
And then Vimalakirti at that time knows
他的想法，然后就
his
直接在
thoughts
大
at
众
that
当中
time.
就是告诉他，就是说佛所这个
Vimalakirti
八大
then
戒
said
脱
that the
就是
Buddha
人则
has
性
explained
受
the
就
8
佛不是说的我们
emancipations.
前面讲到的就是我们讲的这个，就像那个声闻乘里面的就是8种这个解脱法。那佛不是说已经8种解脱
Since
法，
he
而且你
already
们这个声
explained
闻
the
乘的
8
声闻的话呢，就是
emancipations,
度
and
一
you
义的受
Shravakas
度一义
are
的这个性质。
practicing
那
these
度一义的
8
性质的话
emancipations,
呢，
isn't
那么
it?
就是就是这个
Then
难道就是你再有这个
have
像
accepted
那个
them as
吃
your
饭的这
practice.
种
How can you
不好的
mix
心
up
态
the
了，还
desire
要
for
这个问
food
他
and
吗？
that of listening to the
他
Dharma?
就直接讲，你不是声闻乘一致，就是听说那个八解脱法呢，就是要求自己。那么这样的话呢，就你还要
Upholding
边
such
听法
practice
边
of
那个像吃饭，就是那
8
这样子不
emancipations,
好，
how
不
can you
好
mix up
就是他
the
这是
thought
一
of
方面
food
就是
and
可以
Dharma?
就是直接
So
呵斥
directly
了
he
就直接
scolded
呵斥
the
这个声闻乘的
Shravakas.
心态，就是
He
听法的
scolded
过
them
程
of
当中
not
专注的意
being
思。另一方
focused.
面呢，就是他有就安慰，就是说是如果你真的要想吃的话呢，你稍微等
If
一
you
下
really want to
就是
eat,
稍微这个须臾啊，就接待稍须
then
臾。
just wait a moment.
稍微那个等一会儿的话呢，就是那么我让肯定你们这个得到什么呢？
And
就
if you wait,
从来
I
没
will
有吃过
provide you
特别
with
特别好吃的，就是
with an
特别香的、
unprecedented
特别好的美
meal
味
that
佳
you
肴，
never had
肯定
before.
能吃到，保
Don't
证能
worry
吃到，
about
你别
it.
担心，就是现在我们还没有讲完。然后这个意思呢，就是他就是对，就这里面就是已经讲到什么呢？就是讲到那个讲到那个什么就一
On
方
one
面
hand,
就是
he
讲
talks
到那
about
个声闻乘的
Shravakas,
话
how
他单
the
独那个
Shravakas are
食
so
物啊
attached to
就
the
是单独
food.
这个食物，而这个大乘的话呢，就是实际上是他就
And
不单
as
是没有单独食
Mahayana,
物，
not
就是他
only
还有这
the
个在修行上面有一定
not
的
only the
能力。
Bodhisattvas
然后
do
呢
not have
就
any
是他这
attachment
里
towards
也
food.
讲到
Also,
了
they
什么呢？就是讲到就是我们这个听法的过程当中呢，就是一方面
they're
就是
very
然有一
one-pointed
些其他的
listening.
这种这个贪视啊，就是这种或者
When
嗔恨啊，或者是
you
嫉妒啊
mix up
这种心情的话呢，
desire for
也不入
food
法，
or
有这样的
desire
这种
or
意识。
jealousy
讲到
or
这里的时
anger
候，
with
很多
listening
的
to
那
the
个注
Dharma.
释
They
当
are
中呢，
not
就是讲到那个
proper
四
ways
种
of
事物啊，
listening
四种
to the
事
Dharma
观
either.
视啊、
So
注视
there
啊
are 9
还有这个四
things
识的意
about
识，就是
listening.
讲到这个。
First one is the segmented
当中也是讲
eating.
过吧，就是
Second one is
所谓的这个
by
宽视呢，
touching.
就是指的是
Third one
宽
is
视，或者
thinking,
说是
and
断视。
fourth
就像
one
我们
is
这个人
eighth
和动物就是
consciousness.
吃的一
Segmented
颗一颗
eating
的，一
is
段一段的，就是那样的，
eating
就是
by
食物呢就叫做
segments,
是断视啊，就是我们这个
as how
就
human
是
beings
现在
would
我们
eat.
人类就是吃饭
That's
的这种方式，
one
这
kind
个
of
是一种
meal,
食物。
one kind of
还有
food.
一种食物呢，就是
The
叫
second
那
kind
个
of food is
触视，
the
就是
food
接
of
触的
the
触
food by
接触的
touching.
触，这个
And
食
over
物的
here,
话
the
呢，实
touching
际上是
means
在这个6个
the
年前就
food
是
that
得
is
到的这
attained
个
in
食物
front of the
或者的
six
话呢，就是它
conscious
也可以
six
叫做是什么呢？就
faculties.
是根的什
So
么
this
就
is
根了是
the
吧？就是
food
根了
of
是
six
它那
faculties.
个就可能根了的有一个经典里面根本就是不是根
according to different commentaries, it has a little bit differences. Just as over here, for example, what is food by touching? It is, for example, someone listening to some beautiful music and completely forgot about the ordinary meal, or seeing something beautiful, or watch something interesting, such as TV shows, and they would forget about a meal for several days even. Some really enjoy listening to music, then they would take that as meal for them. The third one is food by thinking. In the sixth consciousness, when they're thinking about something pleasant, then they will forget about eating meal. Just as in our world, we often say that when you have love, you don't have to have meal, you don't have to have food. Based on some faith and some pleasant thinking and thoughts, they don't have to listen anymore. During a great famine, a mother may tell her child and saying that we have lots of food. Many people may feel that we are still having plenty of food. So in that way, by telling the children that they have a sufficient amount of food, they could think about it and not feeling hungry anymore. That's thinking food. The fourth one is more of an eighth consciousness. So those are the worldly food, and there are 5 kinds of mundane food as well. Bodhisattvas and Shravakas, they can all receive different types of food that is described in this 9 types of food, mundane and transmundane. According to Great Vinaya Sutra, it says that people who refrain from eating for 7 days, they will still live. They can still live, but if it's longer than 7 days, then it's very easy to die from hunger. Similarly to meditation, if you are in samadhi for 7 days or within 7 days of time, then it is fine. You won't die from. It is unlikely to die from hunger. But if one enters into the samadhi and refrain from eating for more than 7 days, it is very easy for them to die because of hunger, because of the restraint from this physical body. There's a story of how a monk went out, and halfway through he then was trapped in a storm, and then he decided to enter samadhi. But because he entered samadhi for a month, when he got out from the samadhi, he avoided the storm, but he died because of the fragile physical health. There was a story of how Master Xu Yuan went to a cave and saw someone meditate. Master Xuanzang, who went into a cave and saw an old monk meditating in the cave, and woke him up with a singing bowl around his ear. After waking up, the old person asked. The old person replied, saying that I'm here in samadhi because I'm waiting for the time of Shakyamuni Buddha, and knowing from Master Master Xuanzang, Shakyamuni Buddha had already passed away, has already entered into nirvana, then he decided he wanted to enter into samadhi again to wait for the Buddha Maitreya. But then Master Xuanzang saying that no, don't do that. You can become you can reborn as a child and become my disciple, and then we'll go to India together to get all the texts. And then that's what the old person did. He was reborn in a general's home, because initially he wanted to reborn in the royal palace, but because the general's house was way more luxurious than the royal families, therefore he made a mistake and was reborn in the general's house. When he was sent to the monastery, he brought 3 chariots of food, of meat, of alcohol, and of beautiful women. But at the door of the monastery, when he heard the singing bowl again, he then remembered his past life and then abandoned the 3 chariots. That's why his other name is 3 chariots monk. The story from this sutra talks about the story about how long one should refrain from hunger and stay in samadhi should not exceed 7 days. But there are stories in the history of how people enter into samadhi for thousands of years or even longer. But that really is different and based on the different realizations. There was someone who found a person that is recorded in a biography. They digged out a person who's an arhat in samadhi, and then I think they buried again because he was in samadhi. How did it describe in the biography? So he said something? I think in the biography it says that later on, after he said something, they buried him again with soil, and he entered back into samadhi. So it's hard to explain such things with science, and therefore let's not do that. The scientists cannot explain such phenomena, therefore they don't recognize such events. Of course, we do believe in science, on the other hand.
下面我们刚才讲什么？就是这个时候是你们那个就是以后有好吃的东西，不要这个什么什么，
And
对
then
吧？就是这个时候维摩诘居士
Vimalakirti entered into samadhi, and using his power of numinous penetration, manifested to the great congregations that in the upper direction, past the Buddha lands are numerous as sands of 42 Ganges rivers. The Ganges River has the shore that is full of sand. So the number is as sands of 42 Ganges rivers. There was a country called Host of Fragrances, with a Buddha named Accumulation of Fragrances, who currently exists in that world in comparison with the world system of other Buddhas. Throughout the 10 directions, the fragrances experienced by the humans and gods of that country are supreme. It smells so fragrant as a fragrant milk tea that we have over here. That is the name of it is fragrance. The humans and God, and in that land, the names of Sharvaka and Pratika Buddha do not exist. There is only great congregation of pure bodhisattvas, for whom the Buddha explains the Dharma. In that world, all the buildings are made of fragrance. Over here, all the fragrance, the word fragrance in the Tibetan text, it is the fragrance that is solid fragrance. It could also be a scent of fragrance, so it could be understood from the two ways, from the two different ways. Gardens and the different buildings are all fragrant. The fragrance of food there circulates throughout the immeasurable worlds in 10 directions. All the worlds in 10 directions could also smell the fragrance. Sometimes over here, some Sangha members, they are really good at cooking, and the fragrance of their meal really spreads. You hear them stir-frying, you smell their rice from their rice cooker. In high buildings, high risers, you cannot smell those, but over here we can still smell it from different small windows. When I was young at that time, I was only a herder. I had my nose running. My clothing were really ragged and dirty, and then I would go to some of the construction workers' place because they were really good at cooking. Some kid told me that he saw me watching, and he said that he would use his dirty hands to touch their food, and then he would throw it away, and then that kid would grab their food and eat it. I think Master Jigong also did the same thing. To obtain food from others. Anyway, that's how the smell of food would circulate throughout the immeasurable worlds in the 10 directions. At that time, the Buddha and Bodhisattvas in the country were just sitting together to eat. The gods in attendance in Vimalakirti's assembly, all exclaiming the ornament of fragrance. And they all generate the intention to achieve Anadalak Samyak Sambodhi, making offering to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Everyone in the great congregation in Vimalakirti's room saw this. Everyone saw this. This is quite incredible, the power of great bodhisattvas. For ordinary people, don't even mention about 42 Ganges River sand number of worlds. If we want to see something farther away, we have to wear numerous glasses to see that, to see in such distance. Some people may feel that Ganges River, sands in Ganges River, some people may feel that that's lots of sand grains. How could there be such number of worlds? Of course, everyone has different thoughts. You don't necessarily have to agree with this number. But in fact, not only from Buddhism aspect or point of view, rather from the scientific point of view, it is quite impressive and it is quite out of our own thoughts. Many people were really scared about the black hole that was really popular a short while ago because of its picture, because they were worried that the black hole would suck in the whole universe and everything will be lost. But in fact, the black hole is about 55 million light years away. That is very, very far. What is the speed of light? It is around 300,000 kilometers per second. And with such speed, the light could travel 7.5 rounds around the Earth. And with such a speed, it travels for a whole year rather than a second. It is called a light year. It is very difficult to even think about it or express it. It is about 10 to 12 of 10 kilometers away. If we drive about 200 kilometers per hour by car, it takes us 940,000 years to go there. It's hard to imagine that, isn't it? So thinking about this number, it's very reasonable to think about the sand grains of Ganges River. Last year, there's a group of scientists who found that the furthest system they can find is about 30 billion light years away from us. Also, Australian scientists, they predicted their scientific prediction was that there are about 70 sextillions of stars in the universe that is foreseeable through our present technology. 70 sextillions. Can you imagine that? Can you perceive that? Therefore, when we talk about the sand grains of Ganges rivers or the 3,000-fold world, how is that unreasonable? Many people may feel that that's only the teaching of Buddhism. In fact, that is not. When we talk about the 70 sextillions of stars, and all the scientists are currently still discovering and studying, it is very difficult for all of us to grasp, to understand. 2,500 years ago, there's no scientific equipment or any kind of equipment to research and study the universe like nowadays. Nowadays, our science is rather developed. Lots of the top scientists, they have rather very similar thoughts and philosophy and understanding to Buddhism. Many scientists, they have different opinions and different understandings of the universe. But at that time, 2,500 years ago, the 3,000-fold world, the sand grains of Ganges River, all of these kind of expressions that may sound a little different than the modern language don't come to conclusion to such kind of language before you understand it. The Buddhist teaching is difficult to understand, is so profound and very difficult to understand. Don't even mention the Buddhist language. Let's talk about the scientists' language. They're very difficult to understand as well. So our understanding towards the cosmos as well as other teachings, they're very similar to Buddhism's understanding. They're not completely the same, but some of them are very similar. According to Kala Chakra and other different sutras and tantras, the teachings also vary a bit. Maybe they have a very different, teachings, profound meanings behind it. Just as when we present something very delicious to yourself, to others, and the other person may very well feel it's really disgusting. Sometimes we would say that this is beautiful, and others may feel that it's ugly. We may feel that one is really beautiful and the other is not. But based on people's different karma, people may perceive the external world very differently. What the Africans may consider as the most beautiful, the Asians may feel that they're really ugly to look at. Or even the Asians, when we send the most beautiful Asians to South America, they may not feel the same. Some distance, some space difference. There are different teachings about that. So maybe we'll stop here. I really want to finish this part, but because I can't finish, then I feel a little upset. We will continue. So Vimalakirti then said that because everyone is feeling really hungry, but all the other bodhisattvas and all the gods are eating, are having such a great time of eating. So Vimalakirti then asked the congregation of bodhisattvas, saying that, "Sirs, who is able to go and get food from the Buddha?" Through the influence of Manjushri's awesome, luminous power, they all remained silent. Nobody was talking. The reason behind that is Vimalakirti is the host. Nobody wants to raise their hand saying that I'm going to go without letting the host. Second one is that Manjushri is omniscient, and through such blessings of his wisdom, he then blessed everyone of not speaking, just like in certain situations, the one with wisdom would signal others of not saying anything, not making any comments. And then Vimalakirti then said that, "Sir, are you not ashamed for this great congregation? The other day, all your bodhisattvas made such a great speech, but now we're so hungry for lunch, but none of you can go there and get us lunch. You should be so ashamed of yourself." That's what Vimalakirti said at that time. According to Master Kuei-ji, he said in his commentary saying that this part only is stated in such a way to show how Manjushri's numinous power is that wonderful and great. And later on, it talks about the great numinous power of Manjushri, of Vimalakirti. And Manjushri then said that, as Buddha has said, one should not belittle those of no learning. He started telling Vimalakirti saying that do not look down at those of the beginners. The beginners, in fact, at the beginning, when they have some faith, it's very difficult. But your words are too harsh if you're saying that. What if you're saying that? What a shame that you cannot do that. As Buddha said that you should not treat them as such.
就这个很有意思的，文殊菩萨呢，就是为什么说，就是当时那个初学者呢，就是
Then warned Vimalakirti of not belittling the beginners.
这里面讲这个无情为无，意念会界，变通背
According to
说那个。
According to the comprehensive historical records of Buddhism, it says that do not belittle those who haven't achieved enlightenment for a glimpse of suchness, even for a moment, for a short period of time, for a short moment of introspective awareness are enough to lead them back to enlightenment, a state that they inherently have. Within one moment, they can then attain such realization. Within great Vinaya Sutra, it says that a new bhikshu went to the Buddha's congregation, and then Ananda was sent there to take care of him and take him to his house and so on. And then the new bhikshu asked for many things, that I want to have flowers, I want to have nice blankets, and I want it to be clean, and so on. And Ananda was very upset and went to the Buddha saying that he's asking too much. The Buddha said that just do as he says, and arranged whatever the new bhikshus needed. And Ananda, after taking him there the second day, the new bhikshu disappeared. Ananda was wondering where he went. The Buddha then told him that, well, the new bhikshu then was not enlightened yesterday, but today he attained arhathood and he flew away. Maybe some of the guests, some of the guests have very high requirements, and whenever you see such guests, and then maybe you should treat them well. Maybe the second day his arhat would fly away. But if they repeat such behavior the second day, then you should not suffice their requirement, because that's just, there's nothing to do for them. According to the Ekodhara Agama, it says that do not belittle a dragon in its youngest, as they can summon the rain at any time. Just as last night and the night before last night, it was thundering and raining heavily over here. And do not belittle a young novice practitioner. Maybe they look young, they're very petite. Maybe some leaders, some kings, when they were young, when they were little, in the picture they may seem really, they seem poor and they're so helpless. But when they grew up, they have great authorities and great powers, as they may liberate numerous beings someday as great bodhisattvas. So the Buddha said that do not belittle anyone. The ones who has more power and the ones who don't have any power or don't have any strength at all. Do not belittle anyone. If someone who has a bad temper at the beginning also left with bad temper, also be nice to them. This is probably the best way to do. At this, Vimalakirti, without rising from his seat, created by transformation Bodhisattva, whose 32 primary characteristics and 80 subsidiary marks were radiantly bright, whose glorious presence was particularly excellent, surpassing all in the assembly. And then Vimalakirti announced to the one that he manifested, saying that go to the world in the upper direction. We are separated from here by Buddha lands as numerous as sands of 42 Ganges River. There is a country named host of fragrances. The Buddha of that country named accumulation fragrances is just sitting down to eat with the Bodhisattvas. Go there and say, as I told you. You should tell him what I told you. Repeat this, saying that Vimalakirti bows his head into the feet of the world-honored one, and with great respect he inquires immeasurable times as to whether he might have some slight illness, some slight vexation or afflictions, and as to whether you might have some slight and whether your energy are at peace, are you sleeping well, how's your emotions. See, Vimalakirti talks in such a way to the Buddhas, so it's very important to maintain good relationship. Just as a Samsanga member who would come here without talking to anyone, but only having this face of anger and not showing any warmth to others. Some people don't have great realization, but they pretend they have great realization. But look, Vimalakirti talking to the Buddha of accumulation of fragrances. He would ask the Buddha, saying that, are you eating well? Are you having any slight illness? Are you happy? And asking all those questions. So I think our Sangha members over here, then you should at least say hi to one another and also care for others and ask them whether if they're well and so on. I myself also try to do that whenever I see someone else, try to say hi to them. He then wishes to obtain leftover of the world-honored one's meal, which would be given to accomplish the Buddha's work in the Saha world. So he went there to ask, do you have any leftover for the world-honored one's meal? Because the congregation of the Buddha's of the Buddha haven't had lunch yet, so could you give us some meal? The Shravakas without meal, they are not happy. If they like fragrant meal from the Saha world, they must like the fragrant meal from this Buddha land. On one hand, from such a meal, the Shravakas would receive great benefit. On the other hand, upon receiving such a meal, they would be satisfied. This kind of food from your Buddha land, then if you could give us your food, the Bodhisattvas from our world would receive great benefits. It will cause those who delight in inferior dharma to disseminate the great path, and it will also cause the Tathagata's reputation to be universally known. We'll stop here.